And I am so proud to present the ever so excellent Caitlin Lim. Okay, hello, welcome. It has been almost at least a month since I've done a podcast. Welcome back, me, Mr. Christian Blandin, and welcome my lovely guest. Who are you? Tell the people your name and what you do.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I've known Christian for a long time now. Um, I'm basically just a student, but I do have another side, and I work as a artist, a contributing artist for a mental health account. And my daytime job is that I work as a nursing assistant.
Cool. Yes. And by a long time, she means I've known her entire life because she's my cousin. I've known
Yep,
her since she's a little baby.
that's how I got on here. Just kidding.
Yeah. She basically begged me. She said, "Come on, dude, make me famous. Trying to get out there." JK.
Yeah, gotta do what you gotta do.
Gotta hustle, man. If you make it, I make it. All right. So actually, straight into the art. Now, when I saw you were working stuff, I had no idea that you're actually doing art. Like how, first of all, how long have you been like professionally or like seriously like pursuing art?
Well, that's kind of like the weird thing with it is that I've always been really creative and artistic as a kid. But, growing up, we are kind of pushed into like pursuing a profession. We go to school for what we're supposed to, and not that that's a bad thing. But with my experiences in life growing up, starting college, I never really got to pursuing the creative side in me. And it wasn't until the pandemic that I started getting into my art side. It helped as like a form of art therapy, and it kind of just allowed me to grow as a person. And it was like the pandemic was kind of like my awakening, my artistic awakening into kind of pursuing that. Like I never went to school for art. I just kind of took a shot when I started making money from my job as a nursing assistant. I was like, I'll just buy an iPad. I'll start doing art to help myself. And with, the anxiety from the pandemic, and I made an art account at Kate's Creations, and someone found me, and they're like, hey, I want you to be an artist on here. Actually, you had her on your podcast before, AJ for at selfcare.hugs. And it kind of just became not really a profession, but both an outlet for my personal growth and kind of like a new side that I wanted to pursue.
Sweet. Yeah, I know. Right now, as far as all the art that you're putting out and publishing, you do it all electronically, which is super cool. I imagine that makes the workflow like a lot easier rather than having to go through like physical materials and like start over from scratch onto like, a new canvas or piece of paper and having to fix things. But before you went digital, what were you doing before as far as like were you just drawing pen and paper?
Yeah, that's the thing. I really wasn't doing anything. It was just kind of like a jump into something totally new. I just knew I wanted to do digital mainly because I was really lazy. That's another reason why I didn't pursue my artistic side the way that I had hoped for. I wish I did it in the past because I was so lazy. Like I just didn't like having to deal with all the material and then messing up and then having to start over. But a little bit that I was doing before was just like TikTok art, like like embroidery and the canvas and painting. And then I just jumped into digital art a few months later. That's really it.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
dude, because you're like really good.
Thank you.
I like it looks super professional. Like you've been doing it for like a long time.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, that's what I was like, oh, has she been doing this for like forever? Like, and I just didn't know because it's so good. Like I can totally see it. Like, I mean, you've made stickers and whatnot, but I can totally see like those being like shirts or on printed out even or on canvas. They're awesome.
Thank you. I mean, I wish I could pursue that. I mean, that's like definitely in the back of my mind because it's something I'm so passionate about. And, I'm mixing in my advocacy for it, for mental health. And that's what inspires me to make the art. So I'm glad people are reciprocating and appreciating it for what it is. But yeah, it's just something really fun for now.
All right, do your thing, internet. Let's go. TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Just blow her up. Get her out there. Yeah, dude, it's freaking dope. Dude, your stuff is so good.
Thanks.
So as far as like your the whole style with it, like do you have like any inspirations or like certain people or accounts that have like influenced your style of art?
Yeah, definitely. There were these two girls on TikTok because that's kind of what got me started into making art as like a side business, and that's why I had like a sticker shop for a while. But it was at Jelly Bean Celine. I don't know if you know her, and at Art by Elaine.co, I believe, on TikTok, and they really inspired me because they're both around my age, pursuing their own career. Like Elaine by Art by Elaine, she's pursuing law, but she still was able to make a full time job with art and all these things and just honing her skills with the pandemic. And then with Jelly Bean Celine, her name is Celine, she was a full time sociology PhD student. So it
Oh
made me feel
wow.
like, wow, like I could do this. I mean, not with the intention of making a living, but if they can hone their art skills during this time while also pursuing their career, I can do that. It just so happens that I'm pursuing nursing. But that's really what inspired me. In terms of art style, I'm still working on that.
Yeah, I don't know, that comes with time, right? And just saying
Mm-hmm.
what you like and gravitate towards, and obviously what like your audience responds to.
Mm-hmm.
But that's crazy, yeah, because you're all like professionals, you know, working hard that's in areas that typically require a lot of attention and study and focus.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool that all of you guys are able to go like move forward and still be able to express yourselves and and who
Yeah.
knows, you're being humble, but it could definitely be something that you do, if again we were just talking about earlier as far as doing it genuinely and because you love to do it, people
Mm-hmm.
pick up on that energy and they can totally see, oh, hey, this person's truly all about, their art and their craft of just whatever it may be. In your case, making literal art, digital art.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, it's super cool. I'd love to see like on a coffee mug right here,
I love to see it too. We'll see. We'll see where
Yeah,
this all takes me.
we can do a little poll on the interwebs and see what people would be interested in doing, whether it be, stickers again.
Mm-hmm.
Because even that's like super easy, It doesn't cost a whole lot to do some stickers and, can give them out to a bunch of people. But coffee
Yeah.
mugs, And I think
Yeah.
especially too, what I like about what you do, both for the account that you contribute to and what you do for yourself, is the mental health advocacy,
Mm-hmm.
which is what it's super cool that it's a more common subject now and it's not super taboo like it was like say 10 years ago. That
Absolutely.
people, I think now everyone's, not everyone, but a lot more people are comfortable accepting that, hey, look, that life is a journey. It's not all just straight shooting and smooth and constantly just, going to be easy, as you get older. Yes,
Exactly.
you become wiser and, you gain more knowledge, but there are difficulties along the way. And sometimes that can, beat us up mentally, emotionally. And so, yeah, just being okay that, hey, look, things are hard. Life is hard,
Yeah.
man.
Exactly.
And that's I think what makes testimonies so great, right? When you hear about someone like Oprah or The Rock and like, oh, I came from
Exactly.
this and now I'm here,
Mm-hmm.
literally starting from the bottom, and they
Yeah.
work their way up. That's what inspires us, right? Is that perseverance, and going through the struggle.
Yeah.
Otherwise would be so inspired. It's like, yeah, I had it good from the beginning.
Yeah.
Only
That's
got greater.
Yeah, like all this biggest success stories, like what you said with examples of Oprah and The Rock, they started from the bottom. And like that's not necessarily the case for all success stories, but I think the common denominator there, like you were touching on, is the mental health aspect of it and like that stigma. And it's not even just like the stigma, it's the misconception that mental health kind of means like you're mentally ill, but those are two totally different things. And that's why I'm so passionate about the field, pursuing it in both nursing and through my art, is because that's not really the case. Like mental health affects everyone, like whether you want to believe it or not. Like we all have a brain, we all have mind, thoughts, and emotions. And just like our physical health, we have our mental health. But just because you talk about physical health doesn't mean you're talking about physical illness, because those are two separate things. It just so happens the illness falls under the category of health. And that's what I just wish a lot of people understood.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
with mental health, I think there's this misconception, like you were saying that, oh, if I'm struggling with mental health and I am this broken, unfixable, you know, toy soldier that just can't go back and do its thing
Mhm.
anymore. And that's not the case, you know?
No,
It's like I said, there are hurdles, you know, along the way. And
exactly.
when we're able to get over that, that's what pushes you a little bit further. Like, oh, hey, look, you know, I overcame this struggle, whether it's anxiety, depression, self doubt. You know, these are all
Mm-hmm.
things that maybe we experience on, you know, different ranges. Some people a little bit more than others. You know, sometimes just like, ah, like Lily, say you're running through an obstacle course. Ah, I'm not sure if I can make it over that rock. You
Yeah.
know, it's a pretty big rock. I'm not sure if I can clear it, right? But then you do. It's like, oh, okay, no big deal. I can totally get that rock next time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other people be like, oh, absolutely not. I'm just gonna walk around the rock. I can't jump over that thing. It may
Mm-hmm.
take me longer to go around, but at least I'll do it. And then you have people like, screw it, jump over that rock. I'm gonna do a backflip over it. It's gonna be great.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, but then we come to a wall, and maybe the person that did a backflip was like, ah, yeah, there's no way I can climb over that wall, you know. And then the
Right.
other people are like, oh, what do you mean? That wall's super easy to get around. You know, it different things trigger different people in different ways. And,
Exactly.
you know, just because you see other people taking some things with more grace and they're able to, you know, push through it without, you know, seemingly, you know, being faced doesn't mean that you're, you know, not capable of getting to that same sort of mindset or same sort of, you know, achievement or goal that these people are moving towards. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a process. It's a
It's
process.
trust the
It's
process.
exactly. And
Yeah.
be okay with not
To
being
not be
okay.
okay. Yeah.
It's okay not to be okay,
Which is
you know?
true, like a lot of people say that, but that's really the case. Like it's totally okay to not like not being okay is not a sign of weakness. And like I couldn't have said it better, like what you're saying about those obstacles and how people can get through it a lot quicker than others doesn't mean you're weaker or worse or more broken than another person. It's just that we're all different people. We all perceive things in a very different way, but that's what makes us human, you know?
Yeah. And feeling means that you are human,
Yeah,
right? Being
exactly.
sad means that you have the potential to be happy.
Hmm.
Being anxious means you have the potential to be courageous, right?
Hmm.
So there's yin and yang, right?
Yep. Yep.
There's a balance of opposites, right? And
Exactly.
so you always gotta look at it this way: is like, hey, if I can feel so low on this range of the spectrum, right? Probably means that on the high end, there is a feeling that is just as good, right? In the positive
Exactly.
sense of whatever you're feeling. So
Yeah.
if you're feeling down, just know, hey, this is temporary, and you're
Hmm.
on your way to the upside, right?
Yeah. Seriously, I feel like I know it's easier said than done that people see it that way, that when you go through your toughest times, it's when those best moments come after. They don't come as quickly as you'd hope for, but there's always something better on the other side. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't see that. And I wish there was more, not like, I guess there's more people talking about the upside of those obstacles.
Right. It's more entertaining to watch like those like hype videos
Mhm.
where someone's like, you know, you got to wake up at 4:30 a.m. You got to go for that run. You got to hit the gym. You got to
Yeah.
go accomplish, you know, 10 things before 6:30 in the morning. You know, that gets you going and it works.
Yeah.
I love those things too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll throw those on just to get me pumped.
Mhm.
But just speaking like from personal experience super recently, you know, the month of February, my birthday month was
Mhm.
so freaking tough for me
Mhm.
recently. I was just going for some reason, you know, I think our bodies just and it's they're called chemicals, right? We're
Mhm.
full of chemicals and that will eventually come around to your brain, which then affects the way you think and feel. And I
Absolutely.
was going through like a lot of like self-doubt. I'm like, am I on the right track? Am I doing enough, right, for
Mhm.
my goals and where I want to be, you know? What are other
Mhm.
people thinking of me? Which that one is like I never think about that, but for some reason
Yeah.
those thoughts are slipping through.
Yeah.
And now recently, like I have the most motivation I've had in the longest time. I'm
Mhm.
training, doing like martial arts training and focusing and spending more time studying than I ever have like in the past like 3 months. eating better, sleeping better, and really prioritizing myself and my goals. And basically, like what I just said, I was on this like super crappy end of the spectrum, and
Mm-hmm.
now I'm on the complete opposite end, feeling on that same level of intensity of happiness than I did, when I was sad and down and ultimately like depressed.
Mm-hmm.
I was really doubting myself, and now I'm like, whew, man, I've never felt so good, and like
Yeah.
even better than before I had this little slump. And so, if that, hopefully that helps whoever is watching here or listening. You know, the other side is going to be so much better than what you were just feeling.
Yeah.
Pain
And
is
like,
temporary.
yeah, definitely. Like, I think that's a great example, like you opening up about that because, like people don't realize that without those slumps, without those low moments, how can you even appreciate the high moments? Like I just saw a quote the other day on Instagram. It's like, how can you appreciate your bad, or how can you appreciate your good days without having bad ones? Because then if it's always good all the time, are you even going to realize the good that you have? And that's not to justify any bad thing that happens within your life. All of us go through our own traumas, our own bad experiences, our own, obstacles. But I feel like without those, we wouldn't be who we are. Like it could either make you or break you. And the beauty about that is that we have the choice for it to make us or break us. And like you made that choice that to get over that hump. And that's why you're able to reach that high end of the spectrum. Probably that high intensity feeling was probably a lot better than that low in terms of like ratio, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
like I'm like
Yeah.
energized now. I feel
Yeah.
like amazing. And to put it in maybe like more physical terms for people to compare, it's just like lifting weights, as you get stronger and you are more comfortable with what you've been doing and you're trying to add a little bit more, right? So you add 10
Hmm.
pounds to whatever you're doing, right? It gets a
Yeah.
little bit harder, a little bit harder. First few
Hmm.
sets and you complete all the reps just fine. But once you get to maybe fourth time around, fourth set, oh man, it's getting harder to finish, right? It's getting harder to
Hmm.
push through and make it and complete that goal, right? But knowing the results, oh man, I'm gonna look great. I'm gonna get the definition. I'm gonna get the strength that I need so I can go ahead and compete in this sport, right?
Exactly.
Just the other day, like working on my kicks, I'm like, man, today I was feeling super tired just because I've been training a lot. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, you know what? These flips and these kicks, like, not the best, not the
Hmm.
best. But you know what? The fact that I'm even here, that I'm working, that I'm
Hmm.
in, the gym, just trying to get a little bit better. I'll take
Hmm.
1%, right? Because 1% every day, ends up to be a huge, huge, huge improvement by the end of the month or by the end of the year, right? One of the things you guys can do, I highly recommend it, is record yourself as much as possible, whether it be through pictures or video, like, especially if you do have like, for creatives, it's a lot easier because you can just, keep track. Like as an artist,
Yeah,
you have a portfolio, right? And say, okay,
definitely.
cool. This is me in March of 2020. This is
Hmm.
me March of 2021, and so on. You can
Hmm.
even go month to month, year to year, and you'll see, oh man, you know what? I remember at that point, I was like, oh, I thought it was so good, or I thought it was so bad. But here I am a year later, and now I'm like 10 times better than I ever thought I would be.
Yeah,
There's
because like
always
if
that
you,
upside.
yeah, definitely. And that's a great way to kind of not measure yourself, but to see your improvements because there's always improvements. Like you said, that like 1% every day, after 100 days, that's 100% rather than just going on day after day with 0% that gets you nowhere. So just trying and like getting over those slumps. Because talking about slumps, like I definitely have like my creative slumps, like a rut where I cannot think of anything to motivate me to spark some creativity. And then with that, like the consequence of that is I can't post anything, I can't share anything. But I think when you find the right intentions and you just allow yourself to feel what you feel and go through life and just go through whatever you're going through, then it all comes together rather than like forcing something that isn't there.
Absolutely. Right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you just gotta breathe. Now, hey, you know what?
Definitely.
Especially when you're working hard, it's easy to feel like you've plateaued or you're
Mhm.
stagnant. Again, the fact that you're showing up and you're putting in the work is infinitely better than not. And you know
Mhm.
what? Sometimes the best way to move forward is to take a break,
Yeah.
to let it breathe, relax, and just kind of marinate in everything that just has gone on, right? Think about,
Yeah.
okay, what have I done? What do I need to do? What's been giving me the most success? Where are my weaknesses? Right? And finding strength in just self-awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge thing a lot of people have. They just keep moving forward without really, analyzing themselves and understanding where they're at and how much
Mm-hmm.
progress they've made and
Mm-hmm.
areas where they need a little bit more improvement so that they can continue to
Mm-hmm.
progress, And so,
Mm-hmm.
it's again, it's a process. It's not always just gonna be, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna kill it every single
Yeah.
day, right? But if you come out with that attitude, like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna kill it. Some days I'm gonna go high intensity on 110%. Some days I'm gonna have to give 70 and kind of like
Mm-hmm.
be a little bit more observant. As long as you keep going, like you said,
Yeah.
1% every day is gonna add up. And then
Yeah,
you're gonna look
absolutely.
back on that portfolio or your pictures or videos of yourself of whatever you're doing and be like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, I barely remember that guy.
Yeah.
That was just a distant memory, and that could be a matter of a few weeks or even days, years, whatever it
Yeah.
may be. You're gonna look back and be proud of yourself for sure.
Yeah. I think definitely the key to being successful in that mindset and that process is to like kill the comparison. There's another thing that I saw on Instagram, a positive uplifting thing was that creativity is killed by competition, and it's not bad to be a competitive person, but focusing on others and comparing yourself all the time really kills like your mental health and your self-esteem. So that kind of like sets you back with that process, like that you were saying, of pursuing that 1%, just keep going, because if you're looking at other people, then you're not going to see yourself.
Mm.
But I think seeing yourself is the most important part of whatever you're trying to do, because that's what allows you to grow. Because if you're growing based off of other people's work, like I'm kind of speaking from my experience being in the creative, community. And just recently, I haven't even been in the creative community for like a year now. Starting my Instagram and then going through those plateaus of not, growing and forgetting why I started in the first place is what kills my creativity and kills my intentions, because I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it for others. And when people see you're doing something, regardless if it's art, weight loss, your job, whatever it may be, if people see that you're doing it for yourself, or even if no one sees it, as long as you know, you're going to fulfill whatever you're trying to pursue by doing it for you. And it's not selfish, it's what makes it sustainable, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I've had that exact struggle in a lot of things. I grew up
Mm-hmm.
playing sports, and especially more recently, like doing martial arts and looking at whether it be my students or people that I've started training with or
Mm-hmm.
trained after, and just saying, oh, well, man, this person's here now. They're better
Yeah.
at me with this thing or these skills or this particular art, and there's times where like I would stop just because I was like discouraged. I was like, oh, I should at least be here because they're at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I had to learn to one, not be such a perfectionist, and two, to be competitive in a friendly sense and really be happy with other people's success,
Of
right?
course.
And
Yeah.
especially if you can find, like an accountability partner and really just create like a team
Mm-hmm.
that sets goals like, hey, look, this is what I did today. Let's see if you can do better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And genuinely wanting to see them succeed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then having them reciprocate that same feeling where it's like, hey, look, I did this, you can definitely do that, if not better, right? If you
Exactly.
like right now, the people I'm training with, I have that exact feeling.
Mm-hmm.
When they accomplish something, I'm so happy for them because I see them working so hard to, complete that goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially now we're doing, some flips and kicks. These things are hard and like
Mm-hmm.
ultimately dangerous. And so it's nice when you stick the landing and you see me like, whoa, I did that. Did you see that? That was all me. And I was like, yeah, man, that was all you. You did it. You, after all those tries and attempts, like you completed that goal. You got through falling on your face, and stumbling and getting past like, being embarrassed, right? You shouldn't be embarrassed that you're trying to be better.
That, I really like how you mentioned that, because I think that mentality or that mindset that a lot of people aren't even aware that they have is what kills like growth. Because now we're kind of talking about the topic of growth. And how can you grow when you're so afraid of like what other people think? Because that's something I struggled with for a long time. And I feel like I wouldn't even be pursuing this creative side of me while, pursuing my career side of nursing, because I would have been so scared. scared of like what other people would have thought, scared of people being like, oh, well, she's not that good anyway. But people are going to think that about me, or just about whatever you're scared of in general, like forever. There's always going to be a hater. There's always going to be someone that doubts you. So you might as well do what you want, of course, within like a healthy capacity and like a healthy reason, and just like hone it. Because you thinking about someone else's thoughts that aren't really even affecting what you're doing is not going to make you like better. You know what I mean? Like, I think people get stuck in this rut of just being like, well, I don't know what people are going to think about this. Well, no, you're not going to know what people think if you don't try it. So you just try it with the hopes that it makes you happy and it fulfills your need, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, sound off. Like, be proud of yourself. You know,
Yeah.
like, life is too short to be sad and too long to be silent. Like,
Yeah.
go after whatever it is. Like, you will likely fall on your face, to
Yeah.
some degree. And that's okay. Really, if you aren't failing, I'm not sure you're really trying, right? If you're not pushing yourself to like take risks and to mess up and be like, oh, you know what? That wasn't quite it. What do I need to do? Okay, oh, I just need to tweak these little things. Cool. Let's try it again. Let's try it again. All right, what do I
Yeah.
need to do? And eventually, like I said, you stick the landing, right? And you make it and you achieve that goal. And what do? You reset. Now you set the bar a little bit higher.
Yeah. Like going into that is like we talked about how I make stickers and stuff, but like, yeah, I'm an artist, but I kind of just jumped into something because I was so inspired by people on TikTok, and I was really bored during quarantine and working at my hospital job as a nursing assistant. I only work once a week. So I had so much time in my hands. And I was battling so long. I was like, should I do this sticker shop that everyone is doing that's going viral? Like maybe I'll be one of these viral people, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't, but I made sales. I was happy and I just did it. I can look back in my life and say that I did it without caring what people thought. I did it on my own terms. I worked hard for it. I used my own money, and it didn't succeed in a way that I had hoped for, but it already succeeded in terms of like self-fulfillment, because I look back and I don't look back and say, I wish I did it. I look back and I say that I did it.
I was
And
about to
maybe,
say that. How good does
yeah,
it feel to know that you tried?
exactly. And
And you
like,
have a definite answer of like, hey, look, I still achieved some level of success, but you're never gonna have that like looming feeling and thought of like, oh, but what if?
because that is exactly that looming feeling is what pushes me to go out of my comfort zone and just do whatever. And that's even just beyond art, because like with quarantine and everything, like I've gone through a lot of things in my personal life um, that have been made worse because I just didn't want to push myself out of there. And so like going back to that, like even though to some people the sticker shop not blowing up as it did on TikTok, because that's what everyone's seeing, it would be like a failure. But for me, it's not. I think it's a success because at least I did it, you know? I can look back and it's still not too late, you know? I mean, maybe I'm not investing in it too much now, but you know, we'll see what happens down the line. But
Yeah.
you just look back and you're happy you did it. And I think people should be proud of themselves for just jumping into or out of their comfort zone, regardless what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you always have time to pick it back up,
Yeah, I
especially
mean,
as things move on and you have a little bit more free time. Why not? Or maybe you
yeah,
start making coffee mugs or shirts, right? Using your art.
yeah,
There's going to be different times for everything, and your focus will have to be prioritized according to wherever life needs you to be,
exactly.
but, it's always good to give it a shot.
Exactly.
It's to me, it's always worth it. It's like, hey, I felt again. I fell on my face, but at least I knew that I gave it a shot. I knew, I got the result. Like, yep, I definitely fell on my face.
Yeah.
That's not gonna work the way
Hmm.
at least the way I wanted to do it. And that's
Yeah,
fine. At least you have an answer. You don't have to think about it and
exactly.
just lose sleep over the what if and the well maybe this could
Hmm.
have been something great, right?
Yeah, because, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think a lot of people, the reason why that hurts so much, the whole what if
Hmm.
thought, is that then they build it up to the extreme success that it could have been, right? They
Yeah.
build up that best case scenario in their head, and then they feel
Hmm.
like they missed that.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, well, if you fall on your face, then it's like, well, I kind of sucked at this, so
Yeah.
not a big deal that it didn't work out.
Yeah, even if like it didn't work out the way you had hoped for, it doesn't even mean like you failed or you fell on your face. You just didn't reach what you had hoped for. Like that's why people say don't get your hopes up. And it's good to have hope, but not to the extent where it's going to diminish how you feel about yourself and your work or whatever
Hmm.
you're pursuing. Because like to some people, people are always going to perceive failure and success in a different way. There's always going to be people that think your success is a failure and then or your failure is a success.
Hmm.
So either way, the what's important is how you see it and how it's going to help you grow and it doesn't set you back.
Yeah, I think with failing too, people sometimes like their life goal is to be where you're at or where you just failed, you
Yep.
know, and
Mhm.
understanding like, hey, that this is a game, right?
Mhm.
And some people just they really want to be where you are currently sitting, you
Mhm.
know. And I think when you try things out, right, and you take the risk and you give something a shot,
Mhm.
and especially when you do fail, it helps
Mhm.
you decide whether or not you want to continue doing that.
Exactly.
Because if failure drives you away from that skill or profession or that craft,
Mhm.
and you automatically lose interest, then sounds like you just don't really want it that bad, you know?
Exactly.
Then it's not
Yeah.
truly something that you're super passionate about. That's okay,
Mhm.
right? Move on to the next thing. And then
Mhm.
if you fail at that thing, but you still want to keep on going, then hey, it sounds like that's worth it because you still
Exactly.
want it. You can go to sleep and say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna do whatever it takes to overcome this obstacle, to stick
Mhm.
that landing, to get over, this rock that's in the way so that I can get to where I want to be. And then
Mhm.
that's when when you have that champion mindset where it's like, oh, whatever it takes, I'm gonna get it. That's when you
Absolutely.
know, like, okay, this is my thing. This is what I want to
Yeah.
keep on doing.
Yeah, and like also going into that with feelings of failure and being scared of that is I always what pushed me to just try new things in general, especially now and going out of my comfort zone is thinking like you're going to be uncomfortable either way. Like if you don't do it, you're always going to think of the what if, and that actually can linger longer than the uncomfortable feeling of failing because it's going to hurt and it's going to sting initially no matter what you're doing or to what capacity, whether it be being rejected and that's a failure to you or not succeeding in a shop or a business as
Because the what
like what you
if
hope
could
for.
be a lifetime. You
Exactly.
could
So,
be a teenager now and then think, oh, I want to do this.
exactly.
I want to be, an athlete or an artist, or I want to be, I want to try this profession, and you never try it
Hmm.
out. And then when you're 70,
Hmm.
50, even 30, like
Yeah.
that's a long time to be like, oh, man, what if I did that, man? What if
Yeah.
I did that? You know,
Right.
that's a lot longer than, hey, you know what? Let me try this for a year, or
Hmm.
let me try this for a month. And
Hmm.
then if I don't like it, or I'm not good at it, or both, if I'm not drawn to keep on doing it, then hey, there's your
Hmm.
answer. One
Yeah.
month is a lot better than, 10 years of like, maybe,
Yeah.
that could have been me.
But you'll never know because you never try, you know? That's not to shame people that don't try. There are so many things out there that are stopping us from doing what we want to do, whether it be financially or wherever you're at in your life. But I'm just talking about like opportunities that you can grab and you have the means to do it and you just choose not to, because we ultimately have a choice for certain things, but I mean, yeah, because I don't want this to come across as like, oh, shaming people that don't do what they want to do,
No,
because
no.
everyone's like different. We all have, limitations and stuff. But if you can do it, do it. Just
Yeah.
do it.
Just do it. I love that.
Seriously.
Shia LaBeouf, great motivational speaker.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but also playing off of that, like I said, there are inspirational stories where people are literally coming from the bottom and
Hmm.
making it to the top of their game and
Hmm.
life, really. And so, with that, if you aren't willing to find ways to create the opportunity, the same thing I was touching on when you fail, if that drives you away, if having to create opportunity and network or, put together resources for yourself to go ahead and
Hmm.
try and get to that goal, create the opportunity, get your foot in the
Hmm.
door. If that
Hmm.
sounds like too much to you, maybe you don't want to have that.
Hmm.
That's
Exactly.
okay. And that's, again, that goes back to self awareness. And I'm really big on that
Yeah.
because I am someone that I love. trying new things and learning and just like, expanding like my view on, life and just
Oh
getting to
yeah.
try everything. And so
Yeah, I know.
I I have to assess myself all the time, the things that I'm doing. And so that way I don't spread myself too thin. I have to
Exactly.
be okay. Well, what do I really, really, really want to do on the day to day, right? What do I
Hmm.
want to do on the week, the month, the year, right? What are my lifelong goals? Which goals do I have to work at like constantly and know it's going to be, a decade long thing? What
Hmm.
goals do I need to work on just to achieve within the next week or the next month?
Hmm.
You
Right.
know, and if no matter how long it takes and how much resources it may take, if for some reason I'm not waking up and getting after it and not like crushing that goal, or
Hmm.
at least trying to crush that goal, then I've learned like I don't want it that much, and that's
Hmm.
okay. It being, and that was one of the hardest things for me to do in the most recent, few years too, was to be okay with letting go of goals
Yeah.
and saying, hey, you know what? I don't want it that bad, and
Yeah.
that's okay. If that's not where your heart lies, then don't just pursue it just for the sake of, oh, well, I already started it.
Yeah. Like
I'm a very
go.
all in or all out sort of person, so I
Yeah.
don't like to just kind of like, if I see myself, half assing something,
Hmm.
then I that's a really good indicator for me to pull out.
Exactly. And that's why, like, going off of your topic of like self-awareness, it's that you also have to be aware that not all goals are meant to be achieved. Like, as bad as that sounds, it's that you can set goals and work towards them. And that's how you find yourself, you find what you like. And just because you don't achieve it, that might actually be the success. The success is not achieving it because you realize that's not what you want in your life. Like, that's something you don't need in your life. So now on to the next, you know? Because if you didn't try, then you would never really know if that's meant for you or not.
Yeah, I've had different things I've been working on that haven't come into fruition that ultimately taught me some life lessons and life skills that I've used later on,
Hmm.
or in retrospect, now that time has gone, I was like, oh
Hmm.
shoot, I really dodged a bullet by not, sticking around and continuing with that path.
Right.
And then for a lot of people, like especially when you're young and you're trying to figure out like career paths and whatnot, you may start pursuing something and then like, oh wow, look, there's this whole avenue of different skills and trades within my industry and area of interest that I didn't even know
Hmm.
existed, which is like the case for almost everyone I've ever talked to. They had no idea that all these specialties, were around. And then like
Hmm.
they find something new. They find that new passion and then they drop the
Hmm.
old thing and move on.
Right. And like going off of that, it's like speaking of being like young, because we're around the same age, or a few years older than me, 20s is, I mean, I'm only going to be barely 22 this year, but it's such a complicated age, not even 20s, but going into college, because we are set to believe that you have to know that your major, you have to know what you want to do, and that's going to set your future. But we're never taught that we could pursue one thing for that to be our main thing. In my case, it's nursing. That's the career I want to fulfill, but also fulfill what you're passionate about. Because even if your career is not what you're passionate about, but it's what's going to keep you stable and, comfortable in life, you can still pursue what you want within like, a certain capacity, that you don't have to just stick to one thing. It's up to you to kind of just see your limits and see your, I guess, like capabilities. And so that way you're not miserable just pursuing this one straight line that we're told to do, which is like so unfulfilling and so expected of us, but then also be able to fulfill our passion, you know? I don't know if that really like made sense,
No,
but like,
totally. Yeah, I think it's a ridiculous thing to
yeah.
ask someone who's 16, 17, 18 years old, hey, so what do you want to do for the rest of your freaking life? That's
Yeah.
so unfair. Like, there's so many things that we haven't experienced at that age.
Mhm.
Which I like again, especially with like career opportunities. There's so many
Yeah.
things where it was like, hey, like I didn't even know this existed, right?
Mhm.
Or that this whole industry existed. And now with
Exactly.
technology, you have, you know, AI, you have drones coming out. There's brand new things being invented all the
Mhm.
time
Yeah.
where it's not like your traditional job, but
Mhm.
maybe someone's whole life, eventually. But you got to give them time to, experiment. I think there should be, especially in America in the high schools, doing more of like those, what do you call it? What were those classes where,
Oh, ROP.
ROP. Yes,
Yeah.
I think American high school should have more ROP classes, more interning opportunities, or at least like workshops. Like, hey, look, you can do this 4 week thing where you come in
Yeah.
and you learn about fashion, or you learn about robotics, or you learn about, coding,
Mm-hmm.
and just see kind of where you gravitate. And I don't think there's enough of that. We're just kind of taught, you need to learn math, science, English.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Yeah, I mean,
okay, how does that help me progress as an individual? Where does that put me
yeah.
in my place in life? That just kind of gives us, hey, you all have the same skill set. Go figure out your very, very specific niche, right? That you need to hold on to have like a, successful career. I'm like, what? How does that work?
Hmm.
You just teach us all the same
Yeah.
thing, but we're supposed to figure out the individual thing. Like, how does that doesn't make any sense?
And I think like what you're saying is like I feel like that can only be achieved through experiences.
Right.
And like for me, I got lucky that I have the guidance of my parents and family, and my I'm going into nursing. My dad is a nurse, and like people assume that's why I'm going into nursing. But I've always wanted to work in healthcare. But knowing about it, seeing someone else experiencing it, hearing about how great it is to become a nurse, how lucrative it is, how stable it is, how fulfilling it is, it's not the same as actually experiencing working in the field. Like, I'm not a nurse yet, trying to get into nursing school, but working as a nursing assistant for the past 2 years has taught me more than probably what I'll learn in nursing school. It's taught me about the life experiences of working in healthcare and just teaching me things that the school cannot teach you. It's teaching me like, do I really want to go into this field? And I don't mean to just speak for myself, but in general. So if we're not experiencing things related to what we're trying to pursue, how do we really know we want to go into it? And I thought for the longest time, I want to be a nurse. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what's going to make me have a happy life. When I started working in healthcare, I did not think that. But it was the complete opposite. But that's the hump that I went through that. And if I didn't get over the hump, then I wouldn't be where I'm at still pursuing it.
Yeah, man. You gotta give people a chance to try things out. It's really hard to make a blind decision like that. Like no
Exactly.
experience, and then there are people where like they're influenced to do a certain type of job, and then they study for it. They spend all this money trying to learn, going to school, and sometimes even before they start the job, like you know what? After spending several years learning about this, I hate it
Mhm.
and don't want
Yeah.
anything to do with it. And then they change their major and their specialization, and then they start all over.
Yeah.
Spend all the money and time and resources again, and that's okay. If you're finding
That's
yourself,
fine. Yeah.
I'm all about it. But I think we could avoid, all that wasted effort and time if
Yeah.
there was more effort put into like, hey, who are you? What do you like? What what
Mm-hmm.
what kind of interactions do you like having on a day to day?
Yeah.
What are things that help you feel fulfilled? Right? What are your
Mm-hmm.
interests? Do you like being behind a computer? Some people can't stand sitting down all day, so they need something where
Yeah.
they need to walk around. Some people
Yeah.
can't stand walking around all day, so they want to focus in and be on a computer. Some people
Mm-hmm.
like a job where they do the same thing over and over again. Other people, they need some variation. They need to have the same goal but have different steps in between in order to achieve that goal. Not
Exactly.
everyone's the same, but we're not going to know unless we get to try it out.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, like it's not gonna, even if our system, our educational system has changed into something more, catered to that kind of intention, there's never really a guarantee. Like that's why life is life. You're gonna go through something, you're gonna go through things that are gonna push you into a different direction. And like I'm sitting here talking about me pursuing nursing and doing art on the side, but who knows where I'm gonna end up in 10 years. But that's like the beauty of it. You just have to go with the flow, but also like it's good to have a plan, of course, but to not be just so rigid. And like I think with like I wouldn't say American society, but today there's just such an imbalance of wanting to do what makes you happy and doing something and pursuing something that's going to make you comfortable and rich. Like it's hard to kind of find the middle. Like you want to do something that makes you happy but also will put food on your table and also give you a happy life. So I just wish, we were taught more of how to balance that aspects of our lives, because that's ultimately what's going to decide our future.
Yeah, I think what I have to say about that is if you're able to figure out, what you really love to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you figure out, hey, this is what I love doing on day in, day out. This is what fulfills me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're genuinely interested in succeeding and helping that industry grow and that craft grow and helping you grow right within it. I think people, like I said, are drawn to that positive, genuine energy,
Mm-hmm.
and success will find you,
Exactly.
right? And you
Mm-hmm.
got
I
to be,
agree.
again, there's going to be bumps in the road. There are going to be obstacles, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. And it's okay to struggle with that, but you got to put in time. You got to put in work. Not
Mm-hmm.
everyone has the luxury of being handed, a certain position in life.
No,
And
right.
for the most part, you gotta work. if you
Mm-hmm.
if you want something, you're gonna have to put in some time. You have to put in some work,
Yeah.
some
You have
effort,
to
and
earn it.
energy. And
Yeah.
if you love putting in the work and you're excited to, like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna grind. I'm gonna hustle. It's gonna take a lot from me to go ahead and achieve this. But if that's
Mm-hmm.
what gets you excited, people are gonna see that and you're like, you know what? There's something about this person right here, and I want to be part of that. And then that's where
Exactly.
opportunities come from. And then those things like, lucrative success, being able to have a home and things that you like, and, having that
Mm-hmm.
comfort and security, that'll come with time.
Yeah. I definitely agree. It's such like an interesting process because everyone's life is so different. Like you said, that some people attain success by like failing and becoming broke and just losing everything, but some people don't have it that way. But either way is not the right or wrong way. It's just all about how we go through life. I think the important thing is at the end of the day, like you said, you're genuine about it, and it's something that you love, and it's something that is, a positive addition to the world.
Yeah. The only right way is to keep on going.
Yeah, exactly.
There's really nothing else you can do except for, you know, understanding that, hey, there's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
you know, it's today could be a great day, today it can be rough, but that's gonna get you closer to where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's your current path, your current goal that you have right now, or maybe it's leading you to something new.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get to where you need to be. Right? It's
Yeah.
gonna take some time. It takes some time to know what you want, to know who you are, and for people to recognize that, oh yeah, this guy's got it. This person's
Yeah.
got it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this lady, oh man, I can see her drive. She's
Mm-hmm.
gonna go somewhere. Okay, so hopefully you guys listening so far and watching have received some inspiration. But Caitlin, now I want to touch on your like day to day and working in a medical facility and working around COVID. And I know you did end up getting the COVID vaccine. So if you want to dive into a little bit of like where you're at and what you experienced with everything, I'd love to hear that. I'm sure everyone else, especially during this time, would love to hear a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah, sure. So we touched on like my art creative side, but my actual job, my day job, or should I say my night job, is I work at a local children's hospital in the medical unit, and which has now become the COVID unit. Um, as like scary as it is and as it sounds, there's so much that I've learned and grown from it, and it's helped me, I think, become a stronger person. And luckily, with that hard experience of working in a COVID unit, I was able to get first priority of getting the vaccine. I was really lucky and blessed enough to get it within the first week it rolled out. I ended up getting the Pfizer vaccine. That was the
Mm-hmm.
first one being offered in our hospital anyway. The Moderna didn't come out till a few weeks later, just because Pfizer was the first one approved by the FDA. And so there are more doses available around that time. And actually, like, I really wasn't intending on getting it despite working in a COVID unit, because for those that don't know me, I only work once a week. I work it's called per diem because people have full time, part time, per diem. And if you work in healthcare, like a hospital, we have 12-hour shifts. So full time is 3 days a week, part time is twice. And so that's why I only work once a week. And so I didn't feel like I needed to get the vaccine. I was really skeptical in the beginning, to be honest. Um, it's something that was so new, it was developed so fast.
Hmm.
And I think
Because the whole
now,
situation, I mean,
yeah,
coronavirus, I mean, the coronaviruses have been around, but the particular strains that we're dealing with that's affected the entire world, that has only been, well, at this point, a serious issue now for about a year. And then
exactly.
how can you trust, a vaccine on something that's the issue is so new. So I totally
Exactly.
understand and can relate, like, oh man, that's kind of a scary thing to be like, well, like, this could work.
Because you like people won't realize it until like they're in your position. Because some people are like, why don't you get it? Like you have the opportunity to get it, like get it. And then, but when you work in the field, it's that you have to like weigh out the risks. Like, yes, the risk of working with COVID patients directly is so high, and you contracting the disease is so high if you don't have the vaccine. But then there was also part of me that's like, well, even if I get the vaccine, how do I know it's actually going to protect me? And it wasn't until I worked a night, the first week the vaccine rolled out, it was my one shift that week. I was in the COVID side of our unit and I just had a bad night. Like I had a full patient load, half of the patients were COVID positive, and I made a decision then. I was all like, I'm going to do it and get the vaccine. I don't really care at this point because I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it for my loved ones. And even though there's so much misconception with the vaccine is that if you get it, you're gonna be like immune to it. You're gonna be immune to COVID. It's just like this whole shield of protection, which is not the case. If you actually read on the FDA approval of the explanation of the Pfizer vaccine, the vaccine prevents you from becoming symptomatic, but it doesn't prevent you from getting COVID. But with media and stuff, it kind of portrays that like the vaccine saves you. But it does in some cases, but people just have to realize what it actually does and what it actually doesn't. And so I did the due diligence and I got the vaccine for my family because I live at home with my parents. And I felt like it was my duty to protect them and to prevent me from getting sick since I work with COVID patients head on. And so that way I don't pass it on to them. And I feel like a lot of people were on the same boat when other healthcare workers were getting the vaccine. They were like, I'm doing this for my family, I'm doing this for my loved ones.
And that's for me, it's the only reason I really want to get it, is for family, so I don't have
Yeah.
to worry about especially for our elderly people in the family.
Mhm.
I don't want to be responsible for either having this detrimental cause to their health, or
Mhm.
having them pass away because like I was irresponsible and was around them when I probably shouldn't have been, or I didn't take the precautions to make sure that everything was safe and that I was safe while I was going out during a time that I
Mhm.
wasn't even with them.
Yeah.
It's
'Cause
it's tough because we're
yeah.
you don't want to be away from your loved ones for too long,
Mhm.
but again, this is so new, and even with learning so much, there's still so much that's uncertain right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a broad thing actually to talk about. Like there's so much I want to say about it, but I think it all just depends on where you are in your life, what you're dealing with, how many people you deal with, because that's why, there's tiers of when you get the vaccine. I just happen to get it because I work in a COVID unit. So those are the first people that get it. But it just really depends on how you live your life and how, and also how safe you feel taking the vaccine. Initially I didn't feel safe because I was like, this was developed so fast. Even with like technology nowadays, I didn't feel safe. But ultimately you make that decision, and I weighed in that there was more risk in getting the virus and then passing it to someone else than me getting a vaccine that had a 95% effective rate. And also you didn't really hear anything that bad happening yet. So it was a risk. You have to either take the hefty risk or the calculated risk.
Hmm.
And I don't know, it really depends on the person. I'm not out here saying that you should get the vaccine because I don't think that. It depends on you, and I'm not out here saying that you shouldn't get it. So it really just depends like where you are in your life.
Yeah, it's definitely not a perfected vaccine, and I think a lot of people, you know, they're sick of the whole COVID thing. I get it. It's
Yeah.
exhausting. It's like a year later, like we're still dealing with this. Some countries have done a lot better, and where they've eliminated at least the risk of passing it around.
Mhm.
Or being in the U.S., we're a large country, large population, and so mindsets vary and differ, and we're all going through different things at different times.
Yeah.
However, it's like I think what we lack here in the U.S. is a sense of community and having a common goal. And people are like, oh, well, I want to do this thing. Like, oh, I want
Yeah.
to go see family. I want to go watch a movie. I want to go out to a restaurant. I'm like,
Yeah.
cool. We can all go out to a movie, all see family, all go out to a restaurant if we just pitched in and took a little bit more time and effort to actually, at least minimize this thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
if in retrospect, it's all easier to say, oh, if we did this, if we did that, in the past,
Mm,
hindsight's 2020, right?
yeah.
So
Ironically, yeah.
had
2020.
we just locked down a little bit harder in the beginning, we'd probably see, a lot less of an issue right now. However, we didn't, and we are where we are now. And who knows?
Exactly.
I could be
Yeah.
wrong about that, but you know, the way I look at it is if you can at least minimize risk,
Hmm.
why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I
You know?
definitely agree. I agree 100% as a healthcare worker. It was really painful, especially in the beginning, because I actually just didn't start working in this COVID unit, this hospital, until June. I was actually supposed to get hired back in March, but it got pushed back because of COVID. And I had actually quit my previous job as a nursing assistant because of the risk, but I couldn't, pass up this opportunity. And I was thinking medical unit. I was like, I don't think it's going to be COVID. And then months later, we become the COVID unit. So being front, I don't like to use the word front line. There are so many more people that really put their lives on the front line than me. But just witnessing it and living through it it's painful to see people not take it seriously and to lack that sense of community because here we are as healthcare workers, fighting this, especially the doctors and nurses that risk their life and, their lifestyle, not just by sacrificing like restaurants and movies, but there were doctors and nurses sleeping outside of their home, not being able to like hug their family. And I had nights like that. When I work at the COVID site, I don't hug my family. I isolate myself because you don't want to carry that burden of, getting them sick. And a lot of people don't see that that's the life that other people live. And I'm not even saying I have it bad. There were some people that had it way worse, but they don't have the choice because this is our job. So yeah, I wish there was more of a sense of community and there wasn't just this polar way of viewing the virus as something that's not real and harmless or something that's like deadly. I wish there
Yeah.
was just this sense of community. It's like, this is a virus. It's killed this many people. Let's just take it seriously and
The
proceed with our
crazy
lives.
part is how political it's become. It's
Oh
like,
boy.
why is it political? It's science,
It's
man.
science. It's a
It's
virus.
all right, you want to argue about whether or not the earth is flat, let's do that all day. But
Yeah.
like, hey, you know what? There are people that aren't here anymore that were here
Mhm.
before this whole COVID thing. You know?
Yeah.
Like if you somehow think that this is like fake or not that bad, I'm like, I would maybe throw you a bone if it only affected your state or your country. But when
Mhm.
the literal entire planet has had to deal with this, it's like, how important do you think you as an individual, like, how important do you think you are? Like, for the government, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna trick this particular person into thinking, oh yeah, this is just some crazy thing going on. You gotta listen to us now, you
Mhm.
know. But I get it. In the beginning, at least in the U.S., it's like, oh, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, wear a mask, stay 6 feet
Mhm.
apart. Oh well, turn some fans on. Wait, don't have fans on. We need airflow. Wait, no, airflow is bad. It went
Uh,
back and forth a lot in the beginning. I understand,
right.
especially after a year. It's like I don't like wearing a mask. If I don't have
Mhm.
to, it's not fun. But what I will
Mhm.
tell you is that even after the whole COVID thing is over, when I'm sick, I'll probably wear a mask out in public. You
Mhm.
know, and as an Asian American, wearing a mask when sick is not a new thing. You
Yeah.
know, that's
Especially.
why I thought it was really funny when like non Asian folk were complaining about like, oh, I gotta wear a mask. I'm like, well, in like Asian countries, like for me, I always like highlight Japan. Japan's like super on top of being community minded and thinking about the well being of others.
Mhm. Or South Korea, they were
Yeah,
doing really well with COVID.
yeah. And if you have
Yeah.
that mindset of like, hey, you know what? I don't feel great today,
Mhm.
and I don't want other people to not feel great. So if I can minimize the chance of someone else having a rough day and, having the sniffles even,
Mm,
all I gotta do is wear a mask temporarily while I'm outside in the grocery store. You take it off in the car. Whatever, man.
yeah.
Take it off while you're walking around outside. Leave a little bit of room when
Hmm.
you're walking around someone. Like, it's
Exactly.
so small. The effort is
The
so
sacrifice.
little,
It's not
you
even
know?
really a sacrifice. I get it, like the people that have like a respiratory problem or that are older, that yeah, they can complain like it's hard for them, but there are ways to just kind of live your life around it because you're actually saving people by just wearing cloth over it's we're lucky we live in a place where we can afford to have this means of protection. There are other underdeveloped countries like us being Filipino, we see it on the news that these people in poverty don't even have access to a mask.
And it's like going to a park.
Mhm.
Say you go to Disneyland, right? If you complain about how dirty Disneyland was for some reason, and they do a great job of keeping it up considering how many people go in there. But if everyone had, eaten their food and they threw away the box or the wrapper that it came in just on the floor, wherever they were standing, and they started complaining, like, oh, you know what, man, it's so dirty here. I really wish they would do something about this, right? But then you fail to go to the trash can and just throw away your trash.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's only gonna stay the same if you
Yeah.
keep contributing to the problem. If you keep
Hmm.
throwing your trash on the ground, it's
Hmm.
gonna stay dirty, or it's gonna be really hard, for people to make an effort to clean it up. Even if there is an
Hmm.
effort, the easier thing to do, is instead of trying to treat something, is to prevent something, right?
Prevention is better than cure.
Right?
Yeah.
What's up, big pharma? Tell me about that. Want to talk about that? You want to talk about your drugs out there? I won't get you wrapped in since you work in healthcare, but um,
It's not a good idea.
it's the same concept, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, well, I want bigger, stronger muscles.
Yeah.
It's like, ah, man, but I don't work out. I'm not going to work out
Well,
today.
how do you expect to get them out? You're just gonna wake up and they're gonna be there?
Yeah, and people are just expecting everyone else is going to fix the problem.
Or that like herd mentality, like that term is actually in biology classes when I was taking my prereqs for nursing, like for I believe it was for like our anatomy class or microbiology, it was microbiology, is that with the idea of vaccinations, that people don't get a vaccine because they expect everyone else to get the vaccine. They don't believe in it, but they believe that if other people get it, it'll protect them. So what is it? Like if you believe it can protect other people with protecting you, then why don't you just get it yourself?
It's like it's that meme. It's like, so you agree?
Yeah, so you agree exactly. And this is not to say that people have their reasons why they don't get the vaccine. There are religious reasons and obvious
Right.
like there are many different reasons. But I think it's tough when you put the burden or the responsibility on your community and you don't serve your community back. And I feel like that's exactly like what you were saying with the mask. It's like you don't expect to get it, you don't want to get it, but you won't do the due diligence to protect like your loved ones. And it's more painful when those people that are like that have the mentalities, when it happens to them, then they advocate for it, then they get passionate about it and they get
Every
angry about it.
single time, I
Mm-hmm.
have yet to see someone that was anti-mask, anti-this,
Uh-huh.
anti-whatever, have it affect them, and then still carry on their initial position. I have
Exactly.
never seen them not
Mm-hmm.
switch sides on the whole position, on the whole like.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It's just like, dude,
It's
obviously there's something to it, right? It didn't suck until it really sucked,
yeah,
you
it
know?
doesn't hurt until it hurts you. And
Right?
it's horrible because you see it hurting so many other people and you're doing your due diligence to just protect your community, but your community is not, and that's not to generalize. Our neighborhood's pretty okay with wearing masks and stuff. I've seen people like really diligent about it, but it's painful. Like you're doing your best, but then you see your neighbor not reciprocating it back. So how do you expect the problem to be solved?
Yeah, and then like, yeah, when I'm walking around,
Mhm.
if I have a mask, like all it takes is boom. All right,
Mhm.
cool. They passed by me. Wow.
Yeah.
All the
Like,
effort. Oh man, that was so hard. And then if I don't have a
yeah.
mask, I just instead of walking this close, I walk
Mm.
that close or that far.
Yeah.
It's like
Really not that hard, people.
come on, man.
And
Like it's if had we done that in the beginning, with a little bit more urgency and a little
Mm-hmm.
less, oh, nothing bad happens in America mindset,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe we'd be more like Australia or New Zealand. Not saying that we live in the
Yeah.
same exact circumstances, but it just comes to show when everyone's on board, it's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
easier to get by.
Yeah, and there's always going to be doubters and people that just don't believe it or just so anti everything about it. But like speaking from someone that works in healthcare and then as I've mentioned, like works with COVID, like it's real. And it's still as real today as it was in the beginning, even with the vaccine. So, those that have been doing their due diligence, I think they should continue because even with the vaccine, it's still here. So, yeah, I just wish people wore a mask.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
And
don't know.
I always like calling myself out before anyone else does because I like to be, I'd be honest, I'm here.
Yeah.
Like, have I been absolutely perfect with the whole Cove thing? No. But over
Yeah.
time, I've learned, hey, this is what I need to do to be clean, to be sanitary, to be safe. I constantly get tested just to make sure. It,
Mm-hmm.
the times that I have gotten with people, right, that I don't usually see on the day to day, the only people I always see, right, are the people at work where I have to go to make money to live and pay for food and housing and all that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then people that I live with, I have roommates. It's like
Yeah.
those like unavoidable people for me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's just stuff I can't get around, right?
Yeah.
And the times I have met up with friends, it's like outside, like not right next to each other,
Yeah.
and then I get tested whenever I can. If I go see family again, like we've even had gatherings outside, or
Mm-hmm.
like not all up in each other's space in a closed room like we typically would be.
Mm-hmm.
We've made those adjustments, and yeah, and if I travel, when I went to go see my mom, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
made sure I was all good, and I got tested,
Yeah.
and then they get tested too, like taking the extra steps to make sure, hey, we're all good,
Mm-hmm.
and at least at this point now we have a lot more information, and we understand at least the basic things we can do to absolutely minimize it, right? At
Yeah.
least we have a little bit more leeway to like be closer to normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
it's not perfect, but at least now we understand. It's not so much of a mystery. We know it works, yeah, or at least works pretty well. Again, nothing's 100% yet, but it's better to try. Better minimize the risk. You
Yeah, and
know.
like going off of that, I want to share that even when you are your most careful, it can still happen to you. And I speak that from personal experience because it happened to us. So, like, that's why I really advocate that if you don't work in healthcare, you have the means. I say, like, it's hard to be at home. And I understand that home is not a sanctuary for everyone.
Mhm.
But as a healthcare worker, and my dad works in healthcare as a nurse, I find it as a luxury to be home as much as possible because you're able to minimize your risk for yourself and your family. Unfortunately, despite how careful we were, my dad got it. And, I won't really go into that, but people think, well, oh, well, they work in healthcare. Yeah, they're going to get it eventually. But my point is that we were careful down to the point that we wiped our groceries every time we bought anything. My dad and I don't even go to the house with our used scrubs from our shifts. We change in our garage. We wash our hands. We don't hug each other. Like being in the same home and not be able to hug each other is like for me it's torture because I love my family and I know a lot of people are going through worse. So yeah, I just wish that that was taken into account. Not saying that people need to feel sorry for those that have to go through that, but just realizing that that's the life that some people have to go through. So I wish that just changed their perception that maybe being home isn't as bad as it is.
Yeah, I mean, at least now it seems like we're getting a little bit closer to
Yeah.
getting to be normal. And I think as the vaccine rolls out, at least that'll greatly minimize the risk for a lot of people. Again,
Absolutely.
there's a certain population that just have you know they're not going to be as immune to most things, not just COVID.
Hmm.
That they're just typically at risk.
Yeah, that's
And
very
so it's tough. It's
true.
always going to be hard for those people. And so always have to keep them in mind. Again, thinking beyond
Yeah.
yourself and your personal life, because
Hmm.
if it were you, you'd want people to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to get at. And you said it perfectly because like going back to what we were talking about, that people don't feel the hurt until it hits them personally. And that's when they start to take it seriously, is when it's already happened.
Yeah, because you don't know what you got until it's gone, right?
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
And now it's like, how much do you miss the movie theater? I miss the movie theater. I love film and like
Mm.
even like now like nowadays they have well they bring back like, old movies and stuff. I'll even
Yeah, this
go
is
like they'll do
nice.
like anime in the
Mhm.
theater. I'm like, heck yeah. I usually go with friends to watch like old anime movies and on the big screen and just
Mhm.
getting together and or like whenever a new like Marvel movie came out or something, making it a
Mhm.
big deal and like getting your snacks or and having dinner before, hyping about it, like talking about the actors,
Mhm.
and just being able to do all those things, like go to a mall, go
Go to the
have
gym.
like dinner out. Yes, dude, I miss like just going out to the gym, getting into the
Yeah.
zone, like going through my routine, playing
Mhm.
basketball, like stuff like that, man.
Like
It's
little things we totally took for granted, and if not even complained about when we had. But that's the beauty of also the situations, that we take these little things now, like we appreciate them so much more. Like the little, like the small, even just like hugging.
yeah, yeah, man. And I feel like me and my coworkers, we've gotten so much closer because now work is like our social time as well.
Yeah,
It's like
I
the
know.
limited human interaction that we do get.
Hmm.
Because again, you're taking a risk when you're hanging out with people that like aren't in what you call like your bubble, right?
Definitely.
And so it's tough. So it's easier to just enjoy where you have to be, on your
Hmm.
day to day. And so it's like, hey, it's like you just talk about whatever. And yeah, I feel
Hmm.
like I've become a lot closer with my coworkers and of course like my roommates. My roommates and I, we were like we go to the park, go to the beach. We're doing like
Family
everyone else,
stuff.
all those like outside activities that were like
Yeah.
safe as possible at least. And the
Hmm.
info at the time was saying, it was like summertime when we were doing all this, and like, oh yeah, like the heat will kill off COVID.
Yeah.
So that's why we're trying to be outside, like be in the sun and stuff. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, it would be nice to go to the grocery store again and like not have to worry how close I get to someone and
Yeah.
like not have to wear a mask.
Hmm. And I think like what makes all this situation with COVID so hard in general since the beginning, regardless where we're at with the vaccine, it's the mental aspect. It's the mental exhaustion that you deal with. Like really not much has changed physically, except that there's less activity that we can do at home. We can't go to school. We can't go, some people can't go to work. But it's the mental toll that it takes on you. Like you said, going to the grocery, that's such a simple task. Just last year or beginning of last year, you just go to the grocery and go out. But now when you go, especially if you're not vaccinated, you have that risk, like, oh my gosh, like what if I get it at the grocery? Because the grocery is a hot spot for getting COVID. And now
Because
you go
everyone has to go
home.
to the grocery store, right? You
Exactly.
have to get food somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's again, it's like one of those things that's unavoidable, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, but there's always that risk because it's not your same people going in there all the time.
Yeah.
Even like me personally, I end up going to the same couple grocery stores. But even though I go to two grocery stores, so that's already like increasing it exponentially for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like yeah, like people don't realize it. Like the people that don't think it's a problem, their mental health or their mentality is not affected by it. But those that take it seriously, not only are they taking it seriously, but they're so deeply affected by it that it affects their way of life. And I think that's what made all this so much harder, is just being scared and being exhausted at the same time.
Well, it's tough. We'll make it through, guys.
Yeah.
Everyone, you, specifically you, watching right now. You'll be okay. We'll be okay.
We've had our
Right?
anniversary, the lockdown
I
anniversary.
know. Oh, wait. Is that today or
I
tomorrow?
don't know. I don't know when it was. It was recent, but I know it's March because that's when it all happened
But
last.
yeah, it's March again. Happy New Year. Happy New
Happy COVID New
Year.
Year,
Oh man.
quarantine New Year.
However, I'm an optimist to a fault.
Hmm.
I am super optimistic as far as like wait everything, but as far as COVID, I really do feel at least this summer will be a lot more normal than last.
Hmm.
And I have high hopes. I think like by the end of the year we'll have a pretty good handle on the whole situation.
Hmm.
But it's crazy. I mean, if you think about it, especially if you live in a country like the United States or in Europe, where things are like well developed, like we haven't really had to worry about like a crazy health, you know, worldwide health issue in a really
Mm-hmm.
long time. Like I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, there was H1N1, you know, this
H1N1.
the swine
Mm-hmm.
flu, as it was called at the time, and I think that's what thought, but people thought it was going to be like. It's like it's going to be this kind of thing that runs on the news and then it'll go away.
No.
And that's what it felt like to me. I felt like everyone had that same still like mentality. It's like, oh, okay, yeah,
Hmm.
it's a big deal, but like it's probably not going to get crazy. And then
Mm.
it did. It ended up being, you know, what's going to be in history books
Yeah,
eventually.
I
It's
mean,
crazy.
I knew it was bad when they were considering locking down everything. I was like, what can be that bad that you need to lock down a whole country and almost the whole world? So like, I don't know. I was like, this is no H1N1. So we'll see. Well, I think the most comparable thing to COVID is SARS, like back in the early 2000s. That's what I think. What at least at home, that's what my parents thought it was going to be like because they lived through that. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like you said, we should be optimistic. I mean, a year ago today, we would have not known what had come in 2020 through that whole entire year. So I just hope this year it's the opposite with the vaccine.
Yeah, I mean,
That,
a year ago we didn't have toilet paper, so
yeah,
we're already doing great.
yeah, we're already in a better
Man,
place.
hey guys, entire world, especially America. How about next time there's something crazy that goes on, we're supposed to stay home. How about we don't buy up the entire store? How about we just take our time and make sure everyone gets fed and can at least wipe their butt with not their hand.
Yeah, or
Or we all
getting
start
into
using
fist
bidets.
fights.
That's the one thing I learned. I'm like, I need to get a bidet. It's a lot
Oh,
cleaner. Anyways, it feels amazing. Don't have to worry about having like toilet paper stuck in my butt.
it's a
You
lot more
know?
expensive than toilet paper for sure.
You can just get some water. You can just, you know, do a little, the Filipino way.
Oh,
a little, a little bucket.
oh God.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. If you're not Filipino, it's okay. You're better off not knowing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Speaking of being Filipino or Southeast Asian in general, have you watched Raya and the Last Dragon? Are you like hyped for that?
I really wanted to. So my family and I are just big movie fanatics. We love watching movies together. And I really wanted to see it together, but our schedules just don't align for us to be able to see it. And we just kind of want to wait until, you
Everyone's
know,
home.
it's yeah, so we're just gonna wait. But it's nice that with this COVID and everything, it's available, I think, through Disney Plus, right? So
Yeah,
I hope
yeah.
to be able to see it. I really want to because I know it represents our culture a lot more than in the past.
Yeah, it's super cool. I think the other thing to probably touch on right now too is just being an Asian American. Newsflash!
Yeah, I'd love to talk
COVID
about
is
that.
not freaking genetic, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
Gosh, a year later, like, why did I don't understand why like Asian hate crime started up a year after COVID again. Like,
And the
blows
most,
my mind.
the
That's not how
most,
this works.
yeah, the most heartbreaking part about it, it's targeted to the elderly. So these people that are attacking these elderly people that happen to be Asian, and obviously it's being linked to the hate crimes, is that what makes you feel the need to attack someone that's old? It just tells me so much about the people that are the, I guess, the people that are assaulting these
Yeah.
poor victims
Hot
is that,
take, if you're attacking old people, you're a coward.
yeah. I mean, love how you brought this topic up because even like growing up, being born and raised in America, in California, um, I'm very proud to be a child of immigrant parents. But even knowing the language, speaking English properly, being raised within the same community as your peers, you still go through some crap, you know? And luckily, I haven't experienced it in a way like this. But to see our elders, especially as like Southeast Asian or just Asians in general, we really appreciate and treasure our elders. So it's kind of hard to see that happening right now.
Hey, just so people can appreciate, just going off of things that the Chinese have invented, gunpowder, which also attributes to fireworks, printing, movable type, as in like typewriters, which then led to the keyboard, which is on everything. The compass, you like GPS, getting around? Thanks, China. Paper, you like writing stuff? you know, keeping notes and documents and having your life together.
Mhm.
Those are just a few things, and that's just China. Don't even get me started with India. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh. Between those two countries alone, Asian inventions,
Yeah.
so much of life. But not saying this is a race to be like, oh yeah, who's accomplishing more.
No, not at
However,
all.
it's just like, what makes us any less valuable, more
Mhm.
valuable? We're all here. We're all here, right? We're
Yeah.
equal. We're together. I don't know, like, you know, what did that old guy like do to you?
Mhm. And
Nothing.
it's sad because it's not getting the coverage and the I don't even want to use the word appreciation, but the I guess like awareness that it deserves. Like this is happening. It's not a one-time incident. It's like there was a week where old Asian people were getting assaulted within the same area and even by the same person at one time.
Hmm.
But it's not being talked about. I'm not going to get into reasons why that's the possibility, but I just wish we all stepped it up because the Asian community is huge.
Well,
And
I'll
I
say it
just
for people
wish,
that don't want to say it. The only time people really care about Asian Americans is when they make bomb ass food and they're doing
ye-
kung fu.
yep,
You know? And I'm
boba, when it comes to
fucking
boba.
sick of it. I am sick of being like this fucking exotic thing and like being this like, oh, are you Jackie Chan? Oh, are you what's up, Panda Express? I'm like, yeah, those things are fucking dope.
Mhm.
However, we're more than that. We're just like you,
Yeah.
right? We look a little bit different. We talk a little bit different, right? But
Hmm.
like the reason why I like brought up all like those inventions, it's like, hey, we're just as worthy as anybody else. I don't know why
Hmm.
we're so far down on the totem pole of
Hmm.
usually like when we're talking about civil rights and diverse casting, we're
Hmm.
nothing more than like their nerdy smart best friend
Hmm.
in most TVs and TV movie shows.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Oh my, is it because like the general consensus like, oh yeah, Asian people just they go to school, they work hard, and they generally have good jobs. Like
Yeah,
I don't
but
know if because of like the general success like overshadows, our struggle. I don't
you
know,
know,
man.
I think I've always believed that was the case. I definitely grew up living in like growing up in a community where Asian was obviously a minority and like we're still minorities, but that you are cast into this stereotype and because that stereotype is kind of like positive in the eyes of the person casting that stereotype, positive I mean like oh you're the Asian the smart Asian one. Smart is a great trait, so why are you like offended? You know, so I think it's because we're cast into these positive stereotypes. People don't think there's a problem. I don't
Yeah,
know, but
they don't recognize that one that we do struggle, and two that because our stereotypes are typically like positive, like you know really like the worst thing. Oh, you can't drive, ooh, and
yeah.
that's not even really right. One thing I
Mhm.
will say about that: Asians that drive in Asia drive like they're driving in Asia. Asians that grew up in America and drive in America drive like they're from America. If you've
Mhm.
never been to an Asian country, that traffic is insane.
Yeah.
That is wild. You have not seen traffic yet, my friend.
LA traffic says nothing on that.
Yeah, like LA is just busy, but it is not as wild as like what goes on in Asian countries. So
Yeah.
until you experience both, you can't really understand.
Yeah.
I
And
guess much like
unfortunately,
the Asian experience.
yeah, the Asian experience exactly like we obviously have experienced it like us being both Filipino, like we are fortunate to have visited our like homeland, I guess we would say because that's where our parents are from. But a lot of people don't have that luxury or the opportunity to see that. So what they see now is all they've ever seen. So I think it also has to do with a lot of lack of awareness, lack of education, and just honestly plain ignorance. So it's easier to just kind of hate on something that's foreign to you than take the time to understand it. That's just what I've learned from my experience, always being a minority in every school that I've
Yeah,
gone to.
yeah. I will say like being mixed myself, and
Mhm.
growing up having family members that are and aren't from an ethnic background, or being Asian, specifically, they just don't understand.
Mhm.
Like even like certain jokes, certain struggles, and just, perspectives aren't the same because they do not have to deal with those things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because they don't care. It's
Mm-hmm.
just because they've never been in that position. And so, like,
Right.
it's not something that they're aware of. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, yeah, awareness is a huge issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure why, our issues aren't out there as much. And when anything bad happens, especially in the beginning of COVID, like, it wasn't just elderly people, it was just random. The one that video that pops out in my mind at the beginning of COVID in the US, there was
Mm-hmm.
an Asian couple that got beat. It was like a group of like maybe like 10 people, like surrounding them, just beating them
My
as
God.
if, they were like the source of COVID, like Asian Americans living in America somehow, like they thought like, oh, it's this genetic thing, like not even taking time to understand how COVID works. And then two, just assuming it's like, oh yeah, any Asian person is gonna just have it. Like
Yeah.
that's wild. I'm like, there are plenty of different types of Asians, and
Mm-hmm.
those countries are not all right next to each other. So you don't understand how viruses work and how they travel. And
Yeah.
then two, it's just like man, like why would you even do that to somebody? Like,
That's what I wanted to touch up on because it's not all about race. I think that's just the facade of to justify this act of hate. Like these people willing to beat up a couple or willing to slash an elderly man's face over like a subway, that Filipino guy in New York, if
mm-hmm.
you heard about that. It's beyond race. It's a cover up to be able to act in hate and to act in violence. Like I believe these people that commit these crimes are genuinely people that are angry and hateful and willing to commit violence even beyond the topic of race. They were just looking for a reason. And they're
It's
like,
the
okay,
same type of people that like hop on to the Black Lives Matter protest, and the same type of people who even hop on to like when the Lakers win a championship, right?
mm-hmm,
If there's a chance to be chaotic, they will seize the opportunity, and that's like where like the looting stuff happens, and
mm-hmm,
where you have like those anarchists that come out and like, they're just there to one one, take advantage of the opportunity to come up on like a new TV.
mm-hmm,
Two, just be able to be angry and hurtful and chaotic. And then
mm-hmm,
three, then you have like this people that have like political agenda and they want like the government to be overthrown and all this stuff.
mm-hmm.
Or like the anarchist ones. Oh my gosh, those guys that actually believe that anarchy would be better than like structured organized government. Wow,
I
wow.
know.
Maybe in a population of 20, but like whatever, bro.
Not even, I don't even think
It's a
anarchy
complicated
anybody.
subject and it's hard because it's not talked about enough.
Mhm. And also going off of that is that these isolated incidents are highlighted or covered in the wrong way with the wrong intentions. And I think you kind of know where I'm going off of that is that this is not to pick either side. It's, I think both sides of whatever you support, there's a problem. Things are just not being portrayed accurately on both ends. And I think that's what is negatively impacting and hurting the Asian American community with these elderly people is because coverage, lack of which goes into lack of awareness, and then therefore hurting the community as a whole.
And it's tough, I hate making it an Asian American thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it just so happens like, hey, look, all these people that are getting attacked are Asian American, and then on the other side, again, not wanting to make it an Asian American thing is like when you have teams and
Mm-hmm.
subcategories and like, you're making these tribes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then it becomes like, okay, well, it's my tribe versus your tribe now.
Uh,
You're like you have this separation. I've seen this online too. Like the rhetoric is terrible between like in the comment section of some things on certain
mhm.
issues.
Yeah,
And I'm not going to point out which groups because I don't want to add to the division. But
yeah,
it
no
happens, and
way.
then people have to wake up to the fact that this is done on purpose. You
Mm-hmm.
know, whoever's in charge, you can debate that on who's inciting this. But if you put in some effort, you can kind of see where the breadcrumbs will lead you.
Mm-hmm.
However, the media is typically not in your favor. Media is typically not on your side. There aren't
Mm-hmm.
a lot of unbiased, news outlets bots anymore. Like they're going there and putting out information so that way they can get a certain view, a certain perspective out, so that way it benefits politicians, businesses, special interest groups.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to rally people up and use their emotions so that they'll take actions based on emotion rather than fact and knowledge and logic.
Which is the most dangerous type, is to act on emotions. That's what, contributes to all this very passionate and just aggressive kind of behavior, and unfortunately consequences, like because of that mentality, like people get killed, and then families are broken, relationships are broken because of that, acts of out of emotion. So it's
Yeah.
really unfortunate.
Yeah, I think comedian Ronnie Chang hit it right on the head where, and really getting back into the whole like playing off of emotion thing.
Yeah.
When 9/11 happened, the government was able to rally the people to say, okay, we're going to go invade this country because they have WMDs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Weapons of mass destruction. They're a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a country like North Korea. That's literally saying, hey, we have these weapons, and even beyond that, we want to use them against you to hurt you. But then now the US like, no, you won't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, you think you have weapons? Nah, no, you don't. Those
It's
don't exist.
ironic, right?
I'm like, you mean so the same exact reason that you use to invade an entire other country, like you're not now it's not a big deal? Like what? How does that work? Doesn't make
Take it
sense.
as you will.
It's like it kind of sounds like you had a different agenda like on your plate rather than the one that you stated. You know?
Kind of like those kind of moments.
Yes.
What can you say? Like,
Yeah,
it's
guys.
almost parallel to that, like, what we're talking down back about COVID is that, like, I'm not going to take it seriously until it affects me, but like kind of reversed.
Hmm.
But instead of like an individual standpoint, it's a country's standpoint. But take it as you will. That's all I'm going to say.
And again, I think as Americans, we're so used to not having huge troubles and issues and turmoil on our soil with like in our country, physically. Like we typically don't have to deal with famine and illness
Mhm.
and war
War.
and on our front, like we sustain very, very, very little damage considering how many conflicts we get into with other country. It's
Mhm.
like we're pretty lucky, man. Because most
Yeah.
countries, we go over there and blow everything up. I'm not a fan of that whole thing, right? That's a whole
Mhm.
nother conversation. But most of the destruction that takes place between our military is usually on someone else's ground, not
Mhm.
ours. That's
Yeah.
why when something like, say, the Boston Marathon, incident, that was such a big deal because we're not used to that.
Mhm.
However, that's very normal for other countries.
Unfortunately.
And so,
Yeah. Like, you don't realize something unless it happens to you. Like, yes, the United States has its own problems, big problems, but a conversation that we had a long time ago, you made a great point that the United States is a very young country. It has yet to experience all these things for problems to be solved. And these problems that people want resolved are not going to happen overnight. They're not even going to happen within years or decades. Like, there are problems that are still not resolved, but there are reasons why. And then I think it's just being highlighted and being talked about in the wrong light. And I just wish people understood that, not that there's bigger problems than what's happening in the US, is that it takes time and it takes like that sense of community, that's what's going to help with progression. Like, America wouldn't be what it is today without those problems. And as horrible as they were, eventually it kind of got better. It's not at its best, but it's progress. Like, that's why life goes on. If everything was just happy and good, then what is there to fix and what's there to improve on?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. The United States has thrived on the idea of the American dream, which I'll
Yeah.
call it what it is, and that's just a individual spirit. It's selfishness, right? It's a
Mhm.
saying, hey, me, myself, and I can do these great things on my own accord. And you know what? That got us pretty far, and it still does. And I still think it's
Mhm.
great. There's nothing wrong with having, drive and wanting personal goals and personal achievement. You know,
Mhm.
there's
Yeah.
some amazing things that come out of that, but we get lost in us and me, myself, and I, right?
Mhm.
The individual that we lose sight of the community, right? And now it's like, oh, college is so expensive, but I don't want to pay taxes. Healthcare is so expensive, but I don't want to pay taxes, you
Mhm.
know? And oh man, it's so hard to afford anything, but I don't want to pay taxes. But other
What
countries
do you
that
want?
have certain things in place, like, when our neighbors that we point to, Canada, certain countries in Europe where college is provided, time off is provided, where you have at least a bottom floor for income, you know, is provided because there is a community, mindset there.
Mhm.
And it's not all just about the politicians and the individuals and who's gaining and who's losing, right? Where
Mhm.
they're more so focused on, hey, how are we doing as a whole, right?
Mhm.
Where's the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that the bottom doesn't feel like rock bottom?
Mhm.
We're making sure that, hey, we have a general, hey, life is good. At least we have at least these what we consider basic necessities, right?
Yeah.
And I won't be surprised to see one, a higher minimum wage, universal basic income, universal health care. Are we gonna fail? Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Things aren't gonna work out. Like,
Trial and error.
Obamacare didn't really work out for a lot of people. The concept and the idea of it, amazing. It benefited some people. Other people, it made things, a little bit more difficult. But at least we're
Mhm.
trying, we're taking a step in the right direction. But,
Mhm.
when people think, especially in the US, we've revolted against taxes historically. That's
Mhm.
what we're taught in school, right? And I think
Mhm.
that's always in the back of my mind. Like, taxes, death and taxes. We need our freedom.
Yeah.
I want to keep my money. Just like that one commercial. It's my money and I need it now.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
so very me. I'm independent. I got this. I make my own
Mhm.
destiny. And we get so wrapped up in that. And it's like, hey, man, well, you could also benefit greatly from this if you just give a little bit to the pool, you
Mhm.
throw in so that everyone has a really decent bottom floor.
Yeah, I definitely agree with with a lot of what you said. I think another problem with why people I get so angry like that taxes kind of mentality is that I feel like there's always a finger to blame. Like people just always want someone to blame. And, life is not an equal playing field. We're all going to go through our own struggles. But I think the beauty about, like you said, the American dream is that not so much about the selfishness, is that we are given the individual power to rise above the circumstances that we're in. And I attest to that. I mean, take it as you will of if this comes across as like wrong for you, you don't agree with it, that's totally fine. But being, as I mentioned, a child of immigrants with parents that came from a foreign country and was able to build a life here, I've seen the beauty of that. And yeah, it's not perfect. It wasn't in our favor. I just think it has to do with hard work and just dealing with the cards that you're dealt with. And that's just my take on it. But I don't know. Like, we'll see. A lot of policies and things are changing now, and I hope it's all for the best. And anything that benefits the community, I think, is a beautiful thing. But I just think something that has also helped a lot of people, outsiders, become what they are today and help this country thrive shouldn't be demonized in a way that it is being right now.
Yeah, I think we can be selfish in our selflessness. You
Yeah,
know,
that's true.
like understanding that, hey, I'll work hard and I'll do these things, right? And because I'm moving forward and I'm pushing, the needle a little bit further, like that will
Mm-hmm.
benefit other people. And sometimes it'll benefit the next generation more than it did you,
Mm-hmm.
right? However,
Mm-hmm.
if no one did that before you came along, you wouldn't have started at the same spot,
Exactly.
right? It's
Yeah.
like I bet you would agree with, like, say your parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Had they done nothing, you'd have to start off where they started, right? But I'm sure now with all the work they put in, you know, instead of the cards that they're dealt with, the cards
Mm-hmm.
that they gave you were a lot
Mm-hmm.
better, right? Than what they could
Exactly.
have
That
been.
That's exactly the point that, again, you beautifully said. Sometimes I just can't get my point across because it's really hard to explain when like you're on the other side. A lot of people, we're not rich, we're not, high class or whatever, but we're comfortable and we're happy because at the end of the day, no matter where you are in your life, your happiness and your perception of your life, even if you're rich or poor, is dependent on you. You can't blame that on anyone. It's how you see it and how you perceive it. And some people may look at us and be like, well, they're comfortable, they're fine. Well, that they were just born into it. Well, people don't see the other end, is that how did they get to here? What kind of life was lived before we get, and I'm not saying that my parents like were dirt poor and then went into this beautiful life. I'm just trying to like make the point that sometimes people just see the front, but they don't see the back. Like when you're sewing something, the front of something you sew is beautiful, but you don't see the mess and the hours of work that it took to get to that point. And people are just so quick to judge and to,
Are you
you know,
saying that you should trust the process and that if you believe in yourself and you overcome your obstacles over time, that you'll get to where you want to be, even though it's hard?
yeah, basically, essentially, like
Kind of
that's
like what
it.
we talked
Because
about earlier.
yeah, but, I mean, I guess it's just in the different sense now, but sometimes people just see that little bit and they're like quick to judge. Not saying that's happened to me, but I think that's the perception that's driving all this commotion in terms of policies and stuff, is because we all come from totally different walks of life, different perceptions, and that's why we just don't see eye to eye for a lot of things. Not like you and me, but like in general. And because I've had conversations about it with other people, and people are easy to be like, well, you're not going through what I'm going through, so you don't understand. Well, the same goes with me. You didn't go through what I went through, so we don't see eye to eye. But I guess that's just always going to be the case because we're never going to all go through the same thing. It's just all about having empathy and just being a good, decent human and willing to be able to educate yourself and just listen to the other side.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's really easy to cast judgment. I've been guilty of that. To be like, oh, well, look at this person.
Yeah.
Like they have it good, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you
Same
kind of
here.
fill in all these blanks. Like, oh, they probably always had it good, and they probably never had a struggle. I mean, look at there's no way you can have that much success without already having a great starting
Something.
off
Yeah.
point, you know. And
Yeah.
that's not the case, you know. And that for a lot of us, our goal is to be where those people are at,
Yeah.
and so it's like, well, somebody has to do the work to get to that
Uh-huh.
point, you
Yeah.
know and so
Yeah.
you can't discredit that person for either one doing all the work and getting there, or two being the beneficiary of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. It's like, can't hate on them for enjoying what their mom or dad did. It's like that was the whole idea of their mom and dad working that hard, right?
Exactly. And like I definitely, from what I was saying, I talk about that and to myself too, because I was like that at one point. I'm not perfect. I don't have this perfect perception of life and whatever, like poverty and wealth. It's just something that I've learned as you get older and you being open to what other people have to say and also realizing like your own life, like back to self-awareness. And I think having that self-awareness and that willingness to listen and to just educate yourself is so important into understanding like where others are coming from and why things are the way that they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say this whole conversation has come beautifully full circle. And I think I'm gonna cut things off. Not cut things off. I'm just
Good
boom,
end. Really
call
good
to a
end.
close right here. Hopefully, everyone watching and listening, enjoying this, got a little bit of something, right? Whether it's inspiration for your art, your business, and your creativity, just general motivation and mental health, and life in general. And if you guys have something to say, questions, concerns, comments, whatever, throw it my way. I'll come talk to you guys. I love this. Like, this is what I'm here for. I want to learn from you. If you think I'm wrong, great. Tell me why. Give me some reasons. We'll talk about it. Right? And if you think I'm right, cool. Tell me why. Don't just tell me I'm right just because, even though I like hearing that. Okay. And then, Caitlin, thank you so much for lending me some time and sharing your experience and everything that you know with the guest today. You have anything else or any final words for everyone before we sign off here?
Nothing, just thank you for having me. And to anyone listening, we talk about this with sincerity and just being genuine, how we feel. It's all with love, all with good intention. And I know we talked about a lot of different things, but take it with a grain of salt. It's all for the best, really. Like Christian and I are out here just trying to really spread love in any community, and I think what he's doing is great.
Thank
So
you.
I know these topics can be sensitive and, can be taken the wrong way, but like it's all with love. That's all I want to say. Everything that we shared here, and it's not just because we're family, but it's just because we have different opinions. We have also the same opinions, and we're just out here sharing it with those that may have the same opinions. Or if you have a different one, I hope you're able to, be open to it, grow from it, and we do the same, and we try to do the same every day.
Yeah, we're here to learn. We're here to
Mm-hmm.
love, right? And so, yeah, we're just gonna grow together, right? And we can only do that if we're here with genuine intentions, just trying to get a little bit better each day, right?
Yep.
Alrighty, folks. Today and every day is a beautiful day to have a beautiful day. So whenever and however you listen to this, have a beautiful day, beautiful person. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you and bye bye.